All right, so I got to talk about this Roman promo because I think this is one of his best promos I have seen him cut. And he's had some good ones over the years, but I think this one was one of my favorite ones he's ever done just cuz you just think about the stuff that he says with Seth and I think what makes it so good is because I mean it's real, right? And I think he touches on things that are real. And I think that's what I love about the dynamic of this feud is that you look at the promo Seth did on Roman, the week before and or the 2 weeks before, and, like, it was great. It was such an amazing promo too because there's so much history there. I think, behind the scenes, there's a genuine, like, their, love and appreciation for each other, and I think whenever you get those kind of, relationships where it's, behind the scenes, it's, for real, they do have such a great, I guess, bond with each other. I mean, I think Joe and Colby, definitely uh, get along really well, but Seth and Roman hate each other. It's like similar to like Shawn and Triple H back in the day. It's like they had some of the best promos because behind the scenes they were really close. And I think that what Roman touched on was just the way he cut the promo, the way that he talked about again like Seth being hurt and him having to have the money in the bank to even just get a title shot. I think all these things touch on stuff that like you could tell that there's a real element to it because you look back at these documentaries and again they do I think they do really like get along with each other, but there's that competitive kind of brother competitive type of mentality between the two, and especially with Seth where he's always been like one of the best guys on the roster, but I don't think he was ever promoted, or maybe not promoted, but he was never really put into that spot like Roman was, whether it was by Vince or years later. It's like because even if you look right, like when Cody came, he was the guy that was put into the top spot against Roman, you know. And then even when Seth was a champion, which again Roman touched on, like he was champion, then he got hurt, and he wasn't really ever able to like go into that top echelon of guys like where you would put him like you would have conversations about like man is Seth in the same conversation as the Romans, the Rocks, the Cenas, Stone Colds, the Hogans, or things like that. Um, and I think he is. I'm just saying that like perception wise, because of the things that Roman touched on, it's it's really interesting. It makes for an interesting, storyline, but also just as a promo, and I really first initially I didn't think that this feud would be good, just because I thought it was too short of a time frame for them to kind of go back and forth, and but overall I think that like given this could be the final time that they do Seth versus Roman. Um, who knows? Like this is where they're going to do it, right? And they're going to do it at SummerSlam, and they're I think at this point they're really putting their chips all on the table in terms of you know bumping this up or promoting this up to make it be the final chapter of the Shield saga, maybe. Who knows? Like, I mean, I don't think I don't really follow AEW as much, but I don't think Dean Ambrose is available, or Joe Moxley is available, John Moxley, um, and that would have been so cool and fitting if he could somehow find his way into the storyline, but I don't think that's going to happen. So they kind of have to close it out with Seth and Roman, and who knows how long Seth has in his career. I know Roman's talked about how he's still definitely going to be, he's still going strong. I think he's still going to be in the business. Seth, who knows, with just the way that maybe his health is and his body is at, and his kid and stuff like that. So, but no, I think with this promo, like what makes it interesting to me is like first I thought, okay, well, this is just a Roman match, meaning Seth is here, like he was saying in this promo. Seth is here for Roman to prove that he can beat Seth. Seth is here to prove to Roman that he has done everything in this business except, you know, beat Seth, and this whole hanging over his head, this black cloud of the Shield, and all this stuff. this match was for Roman to go over. This match was for Roman to promote to finally be everything he says and claims to be. And then this promo that Roman cut, I love it again because it really turns the tide on, well, there's actually another layer to the story now for Seth, right? It's like now I just think they did such a great job of providing the stakes now for both characters because like now this is on like now I could see, I mean I could see Seth winning this match. I don't want him to. I mean I'm a Roman guy and I'm rooting for Roman to win, but I could see the justification for having Seth go over, right? Like it then puts him on that top spot. It puts him on that top level. It puts him like officially on that top echelon of people where he's a champ again for sure, but like he beat Roman and now he can then go into storylines with like an Oba or a Punk or whoever and like carry the title and do all that stuff and you know, prove to everybody that like he is on that level that Roman's at. And and I just think even like the Money in the Bank line I thought was just so good. Because over the years, right? Like it really just flipped the script on Seth in terms of like you change the narrative of, oh, he's this like master manipulator and he's a guy who always has a good plan and things like that, and then you turn into like, well, kind of like, you know, it, it's like taking all the and what everyone's been saying about Roman, how he's handed this, he's handed that, he's always put in the forefront, and Roman kind of flipped that argument on its head, where it's like, yeah, no, you're right. Like, I have been given stuff. It's because I'm the guy. I have been kind of like pushed to the moon on some instances because they see me as the guy. They don't, you know, they tried that with Seth. They tried that with, and he mentions Triple H, right? They tried that when the Authority. They tried that with, you know, like storylines where Seth gets pushed to be the man and the guy, and you know the one that will like usher in like the this era of superstars, but inevitably, you know, either he gets hurt or whatever. Like it's not the same as Roman's run, you know. And I just think that that's a cool way of combating that type of argument. And I just love the promo. I loved everything he did. And at this point, I don't, you know, in terms of who's gonna win, you know, honestly, I feel like Roman's gonna win. But I think if you look at like just from a, let's say from a storyline perspective, I think Roman wins and he goes on to, because I don't see how you could take the belt off of Roman this early. And I think Seth has other he could be used in other ways as opposed to just being the champion. I think there's more like potentially exciting matchups with Roman and Oba or, you know, other people like that. Um, but I also think like Roman being the champ is just, I mean, look, from a business perspective, I think from like Netflix and TKO and what they want, I mean, it's clear that they have their hand-picked champions at this point. I mean, Rhea hasn't defended her championship and she's injured and she hasn't given it up. She hasn't lost it. I mean, Liv, I don't know how much she's defended. I'm a big fan of Liv, but like she hasn't defended her championship in that way and hasn't really been in a singles match in, you know, as consistently as I thought she would be. And then you have you know, just like Cody uh or I'm sorry, like Sami Zayn wins a championship, but then he loses it to CM Punk. Like it's seemingly that like now the business aspect of this comes into play. Like TKO, Netflix, whatever, ESPN, all these partnerships that they have, they are building and marketing the product and the company around marketable people or who they deem as marketable, right? I'm not saying Seth isn't. I'm just saying that like Roman is their cash cow. So with that being said, that's why I think Roman's going to win. But I think an argument to be made, you know, that Roman wouldn't win is I think he did make a point of saying like this summer, this would be like the summer of Roman being here. And like, I mean, August is still summer, but like there's a chance, right? Like this could be where he loses it and then he kind of maybe goes away for a little bit and then he'll come back for like from like whatever October, November, and then road to WrestleMania, I guess. But like, I think that's not as likely. I just think it's possible given just the Roman schedule, right? You look at how those things shake out, or maybe Drew could come back or whoever. Like a lot of they still have people kind of waiting in the wings to come back to carry them uh, when Roman goes away, and then people come back and they build up towards Mania. But I think like in terms of this storyline, in terms of it being the end of the Shield saga with Roman and Seth, um, I think that it's only fitting that Roman goes over, because you look at like how they do business in terms of just historically. I mean, you look at like Rock and Austin. Austin won the first two, and then the final chapter, Rock goes over, right? You even look at like Rock and Cena, like Rock wins the first one, but the final one, Cena goes over, and that's like the definitive one in terms of the storyline, and that they never really picked it up back from there. But like, it's always going to be a situation where someone like I just can't see Roman losing three, or I don't know how many times he's faced Seth one on one like this, but like he finally has to get one up on Seth, and if it's the final chapter of this saga, it's going to probably propel Roman into something else by by him winning. He's going to say, hey, like I finally did everything, there's nothing more for me to do, and then maybe boom, that's when you hear Oba's music hit, and all of a sudden we get Oba versus Roman, um heading into the fall. But yeah, overall I think this promo to me, like, it just, like, I really enjoyed, like, this is the kind of promos to me that Roman, I feel like, is the best at least like, that matches and fits his way of doing things and his way of selling matches, uh the in the best way possible. Like, I think compared to the Punk storyline where it was like kind of back and forth, like, and there was no confrontation really until like towards the end, and any confrontation prior to the final weeks, like, it was always just Roman's there, he says something, and then it's only him, and or CM Punk is only there and he says something, and it's only Punk, or Roman comes out and then he's about to say something, then CM Punk interrupts. It's like, just to actually have a full, like, seemingly unfiltered, but just like a type of promo where Roman can actually just cut loose and really say what he feels he wants to say as a character. I think is always like one of the best, because I think the way Joe or Roman works, or and does these promos, is that he really tries to find, like, and he said it before, like he doesn't try to find like the low hanging fruit, right? Because he could easily talk to Seth about, like, I mean, he did it before, right, with the whole Rock and Roman versus Seth and Cody, but like, you can talk. I mean, but although Seth is not really dressed in the fancy clothes, but you can talk about that. You can talk about like the classic, like, Seth stuff where he has this character, and he's loud and blah blah blah, and he's this and that, like, but no, he actually he talked about stuff that was teetering on the real part, where he kind of talked shit about Kobe, not Seth. um and like, because I mean, Seth did the same thing for Roman, right? He talked about, oh well, the pay isn't, and he called back the promo years ago when Roman was like, he shows up 10 times less than him, but he makes 10 times more than him, and you know those kind of things are touching on real aspects of like Joe, and how his contract structured and his appearances and all that stuff. So I just think that these kind of promos are really, for both of these guys, are really good, because they touch on real aspects of like the people and the characters, but also the people, um and it just brings that element, right, of, and this is what I'll say too, like, this is why, and this is a hot take, but this is why sometimes when Punk does these like pipe bomb promos, and I think Punk's great. Like, I'm not trying to shit talk on Punk, but I'm just saying, or even anybody, but like whenever you have these like pipe bomb type of promos, and again, not just Punk, but like anybody have these like pipe bomb promos, I think it's sometimes, or oftentimes, if people just resort to saying stuff that's like real, or like whatever, unreal, like these the Unreal TV show, like when they say stuff that's behind the scenes shit, it kind of is like a cheap tactic to just get a big pop from the audience because oh it's like you can't it's like oh you mentioned like even like Tiffany when she mentioned Charlotte's marriage or like Charlotte when she mentioned Tiffany oh like Kaiser's in my DMs like it's it gets a pop but at the same time it's like it doesn't even further the storyline along because you're almost like you're pulling back the curtain but it's not to move the story further. It's just you're pulling back the curtain seemingly because these whether the wrestlers in the ring or the wrestlers in those promos don't have an actual creative promo to give that will be within the confines of the storyline that will then also be insulting to it's like you can you can tell like anyway you can tell Joe Hendry to cut a promo that breaks kayfabe and he'll get a pop from the audience and he can do a big you know pipe bomb and it'll get views and attention and stuff like that but like that's not like you can't just keep doing that with every superstar because it doesn't move any storyline along. It's like what are we doing here, right? The purpose of the whole promo is to sell the storyline, to sell a match, to sell a PLE within the confines of the characters that are in the ring and the characters you see on screen. So all that to say, the reason why I'm bringing that up is because that's what I thought Seth and Roman do. Especially now, like they did a great job of doing that and teetering on that like edge of the razor blade of breaking kayfabe, but also not, and saying things that everyone knows is behind the scenes real, but at the same time, it works with the characters that they both are at. So, I mean, again, I just loved it, and I think that that's like I was very pleasantly surprised at how much I now care so much about this match. I mean, I already did because Roman's like my favorite wrestler, but like I was just more so caring because like, oh well, I just want to see him win. But now it's like, ooh, I'm actually interested to see what do they do with this match. Like, what's the outcome, right? Because it kind of could go either way now, and I would feel like either outcome would be justified.